Hey, so welcome to a brief episode of the Brandywine Angler. I am out here on a rainy mid-January afternoon catching some small bass and some crappie. Had a kind of an interesting little pattern. I'm up in the head of a creek. I've got a small cork or float on bobber with about 2 feet, 2.5 feet of line under it. At this particular spot, I've been fishing in deeper water with more line out. It's low tide, it's been end outgoing, and the way I'm getting the hits, I'll pull the float across the water about 6-8 inches, maybe a foot, then let it stop. Unfortunately, I have my phone and I can't really film it and do it at the same time, so I can't exactly show you, but hopefully that description helps, and I'll put up some of the fish that I've been catching this afternoon to prove, photos or it didn't happen, I suppose. And just a couple of moments after my last check-in, nice little, beautiful winter fish, great lateral, markings there, beautiful black fish because the water's pretty clear here. Yeah, that was fun. I'm on ultralight tackle, so even a fish this size is pretty fun. Oh, bud. There you go. So here's a little look at the setup. I've got a 2-inch paddle tail and a kind of a natural color, dark greenish back, silverish belly. There's the 2 feet of line. A little, as you can see, I've got a monofilament leader to my main line and a small weighted float. Don't use a big float. Use as small a float as you can use that doesn't sink with your lure. There's less resistance for these fish, and in the winter sometimes they can be pretty sensitive to pressure, so small float is better. Now some of you might be wondering, it's the middle of January, why are you fishing in 2 feet of water or 3 feet of water? The key is that it's been warm for about 3 days. Yesterday it was even in the low 60s. It was very cold before that, and a lot of this river system was iced up in the backs of creeks even a week ago. But it's warmed up, and the fish are going to be wintering in these types of areas where they're out of the main current. They're not going to want to be in super shallow water most of the time, but as it warms up on a warming trend like we've had the last few days, the water in the backs of these creeks, particularly on the outgoing tide when it's been up in the shallows where it's been meeting the warmer air and kind of warming up faster than the main body of water is, that water is going to be warmer and those fish are going to want to seek it out. And the bait fish that they eat will probably be in those areas too. So that's why we're in pretty shallow water fishing in the middle of January right now. The other question you may have is, why are you using a float? I'm using a float because it controls depth and it controls speed. If you don't fish with a float, and particularly if you're fishing in shallower water, you have to move the lure at a certain minimum speed to keep it off the bottom. You can hop it and let it sit, and that would kind of work, but I feel more in control of the depth and the speed with the float. So that's why I use the float. I use it pretty regularly in the winter. One final thought on this type of fishing: depth can be very important. I've fished for a while. I caught a couple small bass early, but I wasn't really having a ton of success. I, at one point, was thinking, well, maybe I need to put a little more line out. I put an extra 12 inches, 16 inches of line below the bobber, and immediately got fish on the next half dozen casts in a row. So I was fishing a little bit different area, and it was a little deeper, and there were some crappie on an inside bend of this creek that I've been fishing. They didn't want to come up for it or whatever it was. They wanted it deeper in the water column. So, just a lesson in that. Depth can be very important. So try different depths. Don't hesitate to bust out the ultralight. Don't hesitate to fish slow with super light tackle. It can be a lot of fun, particularly if you get a warming trend 2 or 3 or 4 days in the winter. Those fish can start to get active, and it can make for a fun afternoon. Well, until next time, I'm the Brandywine Angler. I'll catch you later.